Thank you very much, Christine. My name is Gottfried Pessl. I am the CEO and founder of Pessl Instruments, a multinational company based in Austria, in the southern part of Austria. I'm actually from that area, and I was born in a farming family, but I always call it subsistence farming family, like in India. So you cannot live from the farming activity. So I studied agriculture as my first profession. Then I went into banking. I was a slave at the farm of my father and mother, and and then I was working for 7 years in a local bank. Enjoyed that to some extent, but I thought that this is not the end of my career. So I studied international business in some evening courses and export business, and started with my cousin back in 1984, 1895. He was an inventor, like my grandfather. He converted a Jeep, US Jeep, into a tractor for his farm. This has a bit of farm, and so my cousin was also getting some genes from him. So he invented a strawberry harvester. He had a strawberry farm, so he patented that, and so I thought that's a good idea to start. And yeah, it was a good idea to some extent, but of course there was no startups at that time. It was just this was until, let's say, when of course with one product you cannot survive. So we are here in the southern part of Austria, very much apples and strawberries are a lot grown here. So I added with some other inventors some machinery for harvesting apples, or like apple bin holding device. It's also a very interesting product. Then we added a strawberry planter. So almost then we had the portfolio complete. And all of a sudden, I think it was in 1988, the local school basically invented an apples cap predictor based on, let's say, an electronics with an LED display. You can this red or green displays, and so you had this in your, let's say, in your house or in your shed, with a cable out to the orchard, measuring rainfall, temperature, humidity, and leaf wetness, and with let's say an algorithm which was on the chip of that pre-historic device, you could see how high the risk for apples cap was. So that was basically the invention of Metos. Yeah. Wow. So that back in 88.
It's funny, we've been doing business together for a year and a half, and I didn't know that story. That's great.
But also another thing came in this period, of course, is that the pressure from the industry already in the 90s, beginning of 2000, was that the organic and the bio industry was coming up, and that time the computer came up. People were looking into the, let's say, connecting the devices to the computer, not only seeing it on a piece of paper or on the display. And then there was let's say in the beginning of 2000, 2001, 2002, all of a sudden the internet became really a massive player, and the thing is that wireless was already to some extent there. We had the dialing modems and so forth, but all of a sudden then the chipset came that you could set up a server on the other side, and you can bring data also centrally into it. And this was basically a complete game changer in the, let's say, 2002, 2003. one company came up with an IP modem where they had let's say an IP address on the modem, and this could dial into a server. So this was basically the start of the IoT and the wireless, let's say wireless application for our sector, for the agriculture sector. But it was a bumpy road because all of a sudden, at that time, the browsers were not as comfortable as they are now, and all the things you could do. It was basically a backstep for the industry. So they were used to have a nice graphic display on the Windows PC. All of a sudden, the communication was good. You could have wireless stuff. It was also cheaper. But on the other side, the display and how you can show the data was not so nice anymore. So, but yeah, this is the double side of the coin.
Okay, and if I ask you the question, because now Pessl Instruments now uses a number of different wireless protocols. You've got a number of different solutions. You have NB-IoT, you have LoRa, etc., etc. If I ask you what IoT means to you, how would you answer that question?
It's a good question, really good question. I think IoT is certainly the game changer in our sector, in the agriculture sector. It's one of those technologies, like the invention of the tractor or the engine or the plow, is that all of a sudden you could get information from your field, so different levels. It's from the soil, from the air, from the machine, from the people, in almost in real time to your mobile phone. So you get this information first of all in real time. You got multiple information, let's say soil, as I said before, but also then you can combine this information, because a lot of these decisions which you have to do on farms are very complex, are very, let's say you have to say, okay, if I have a farm in one village, but I have also some fields 20 kilometers away, then I need to decide, can I go to this field today? How much rain did I have on this field? Are the leaves wet at that field? So all this information has a very high impact on my costs, no? And also on my organization of the farm. So if I get this information timely and I can decide at 6 o'clock in the morning with the weather forecast, so I can say, okay, I can go to the field at 9 o'clock, and then I have a window for my spray work till 11, and then I can organize it. So this is something where a farmer can really much better plan, and at the end of the day, his risk is lower. He mitigates the risk, and of course, at the end of the day, he has a better life.
Yeah, nice. And what we find is also with agriculture, it's sometimes a very slow-moving sector. Change happens quite slowly. What advice do you have for somebody who's in agriculture and farming, who wants to do a bit more precision agriculture, who wants to do a bit more smart agriculture, but doesn't necessarily know where to get started? What advice do you have for those people when they're starting their IoT project?
It's actually a very good question, and it's not so easy to answer. I may answer it a little bit in a different way. I had a call this week with a Nebraskan farmer who owns about 47 pivots in central Nebraska, and he has all the technology you can imagine on his farm, from the pivots of the different automation style, sprayers which are connected on the internet, all the valves are controlled. And I asked him, so you have, I don't know, from 15 different companies' products, and what is the most, because he hasn't got any product from us, by the way, no? So I said, okay, what if you are under the Christmas tree and say what you like to have, no? So, and he said, what I really need is a rain gauge. I need lots of rain gauges, because the rainfall and then of course with all the other information I get from my other pivots and so forth, I can really estimate everything basically. So it's a very simple thing. It's rainfall and of course temperature and this temperature and humidity. But basically it's a simple thing, and I think people understand often not correctly. So you could do a lot. You can fly to the moon. You can do this and that. But at the end of the day, it's the basics. It's the lowest hanging fruits. And if I have too much rain in the field, I cannot enter the field. I have potentially leaf wetness. I got insects. I got diseases. So they are all related. And with the technology we have nowadays, with artificial intelligence, with information from satellite, I can do a lot of combined calculation. So I need just some ground truthing with that together in order to be smarter. And it's not a question of to spend, I don't know, thousands and thousands of euros or dollars. It's just maybe to spend a couple of $100 to get me in the next step. And then it's like a sprinter on 100-meter. No, I always say that you can easily run 25 seconds 100 meters, but if you go down to 12 or 13, every hundreds of a second gets very difficult. And that's the same story here in the ag sector. So to get the first 10 seconds to be faster on 100 meters, it's very, very easy. But then the next 10-15% are getting really expensive potentially, but also difficult.
It's a nice way to talk about it, and it's how you drive efficiencies in any industry is the first kind of 10% easiest, and then it gets harder and harder and harder. But you've got to keep going in order to break through. Okay, so that's a really nice perspective. Thank you. If we then take a bit of a step back and kind of say, there's that customer, they're looking at their low-hanging fruit. If we look more rather than the technology that you need, but more the kind of people skills that you need when running an IoT project, what are the things that you should be looking for right now, given the maturity of the marketplace?
The maturity of the marketplace, of course, it depends on we're talking about LoRa and narrowband IoT and 3G, 4G. The maturity is there, of course, in the telco industry. But also here in the telco industry, they are now struggling to bring a narrowband IoT into the market, and also here there's 3 or 4 stakeholders basically involved. It's the hardware manufacturer of the chipset for the modems. Various companies are here. Then you have the infrastructure provider, which is the telco or the local LoRa operator. And then of course you have the device maker. Device maker needs to bring it in a way that it should be more or less plug and play. And then you have the user, the end user, and the end user. I always say the end user doesn't care what kind of communication system you're using. If you use smoke signal, it's fine for him, no? As long as he has get data on in a way that he can or she can interpret the data for his or her a problem. That's the thing, and at the maturity level, I think is getting there. I also see that the LoRa and the low power wide area network in general is in a stage now where probably the computer industry were in the beginning of the 70s. No, so I think it's getting there. There's lots of players. There will be lots of consolidation, but I would say there is no way to stop it.
Nice. And if I ask them just one last question about what does success look like? So I think you kind of talked about happy clients.
Yeah, that's it.
So like this is also about you as a person, and then also you as CEO of your business. And what does success look like to you?
I get most upset if I supply a unit or a system to a client and he's not using it because he got it gifted by an organization or whatever. I like clients who are, let's say, asking questions and really are in tune to learn more about it. Because at the end of the day, they, as I said, with the example of the rain gauge, of the simple rain gauge, that's something they understand. They use in millions of rain gauges or billions of rain gauges are out in farmers' fields. But most of these rain gauges are still mechanic or these bucket rain gauges. So if we can transform these bucket rain gauges in automatic rain gauges, I can tell you the GDP of agriculture will be boosted by 15 to 20%, because you got so much more information, which is unbelievable. And that's not only in Western Europe, because even in Holland, where you are, there is lots of very technified farmers. They very how to say, driven by money, of course, and that's normal. They are businesses. And I must say the Dutch market is for us a very good market, because we see where the industry is going. The farmers are very progressive, but also now you can see farmers in Ukraine. One of the limiting factors in the uptake of the industry is the lack of professionalism, but it's coming on some of the infrastructure. Because we as a device maker or a software and a solution maker, we are not going into the infrastructure. I say to all my people in the countries, we're not providing infrastructure, but the infrastructure needs to be provided by specialized companies who are, let's say, making their money in providing gateways or solutions for the different verticals. So I think again, we need to provide solutions, and the client needs to have immediate benefits from that usage. That's it, and then he's happy, hopefully.
Okay, wonderful, Gottfried. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording there.